Hey Rick,
Hey Megan, how you doing?
I'm doing just dandy. I'm here in the office. I just had a nice buyer consultation, buyer going out doing their homework, meeting with realtors to see who they'd be a match for, and hopefully they choose me.
Very good. I'm sure they will.
I hope so. I'll report back. So we've got our topic for today, and that is iBuyers. iBuyers, the letter I, the word buyers. I meaning internet buyer. And you'll see iBuyers if you're Googling your home address, and there'll be all these websites that pop up that they want to capture you as a home seller, as a lead,
Mhm.
and even maybe sell you to a list of investors and all kinds of shenanigans because they want to buy your house. And that is, Zillow had its own iBuyer program, Open Door,
Mhm.
and there's several companies that have iBuyer programs.
Mhm.
So I know a few years ago that Zillow's iBuyer program sort of backfired on them because they were paying way too much for houses, which was very ironic considering their estimates and so forth.
So they drink their own Kool-Aid?
I know. Exactly. Poor Zillow. So that was kind of a bust, but they might be doing it again. I'm not too sure. And there's other ones, OfferPad, that's an iBuyer.
Mhm.
So the reason people would consider selling to an iBuyer is because they think it's less hassle.
Mhm.
No open houses,
Mhm.
no house showings. Just give me my money and let me get the hell out of here.
No liability, no conditions,
That's
top
what they think.
dollar, top dollar.
Yep. That's what they would like you to think. And I'm sure that there's been an iBuyer that's worked out for a seller here and there. But overall, you just have to be really careful because you have to understand that somebody that is an iBuyer or some entity, they
Mhm.
typically do not want to pay market price for your house because they're going to have to do something to it to turn it into whatever end use they need it for,
Mhm.
like a flip or a permanent hold or that sort of thing. So they do not want to pay market price or anything near market price for the property.
Yeah.
And the fees associated with an iBuyer are more than if you listed it with a realtor, believe it or not.
Mhm.
So the fees are 6% on up to some of them are even 12%. And so ultimately, you're going to net a whole hell of a lot less selling it to an iBuyer than selling it in a traditional manner of putting your house up on the market. And I'm prepared to tell two stories. One of them is very, very recent that the house is a fixer. It's an extreme fixer, and I put it up for sale. But prior to me putting it up for sale, it must have gotten on somebody's radar because people were showing up at the house and
Mhm.
knocking on the door to try to coerce the seller into selling them the house.
Mhm.
And um, I put it up on the market. We spent some money cleaning it out and just getting it, as show ready as we can. And we've got offers right now, close to almost 200,000 over the asking price because you don't know what someone is willing to
Mhm.
pay for something until it is on the market and everyone can see it. And then you're going to understand what the real market value is.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, I mean, these iBuyer types of companies, they have to make their certain profit margin. They have to look at their carry cost of that property for some period of time. They look at a cost to maybe do a little bit of rehab work to it of some sort, right? To
Hmm.
whatever they want to do to it. And so there's some costs involved in that. And so really in this market, unless a seller is very, very distressed, I'm not sure what the value of that would be. And by the way, I think we can both agree that having an iBuyer does not mean hassle-free, no problems, no questions asked. They're still going to do their due diligence. They're still going to
Mm-hmm.
go through a process. They're not going to be necessarily no questions asked, buy my house, close escrow next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they
Mm-hmm.
do that, by the way, it won't be that fast, but the end result will be, I think, in my opinion, in my experience at least, is that that home seller will walk away with, what would you think, $200,000 less cash in their pocket for the
I don't
convenience
know, but
buyer?
I mean, I just Googled it. I didn't even like, s- try to make anything go in my direction. And it said, yeah, there's a hell of a lot more cost than a traditional. And you have to be careful because, like I mentioned earlier, there's websites are looking to capture your info and then they sell you as a lead to investors.
Everybody.
Investors subscribe to a list. And so I have a second story here. So the first story, they needed to get the hell out of their house and quick and as is and with top dollar. So um, they would not have gotten that if they had taken one of those offers of people that came to the door. That is for sure.
Mhm.
Anyway, so the second story I have is that someone, and I'm going to use no names and keep this as far away from me as possible, but someone that I know uh, also felt like they were in a pickle. Their house was not in presentable condition. They felt like they didn't want to deal with the hassle. And so they contacted an iBuyer, and the buyer was neither licensed as a realtor or licensed as anything, not licensed as a contractor. And a lot of times not being licensed is a strategy for certain entities because
Mhm.
then they're not going to be held accountable to any sort of licensing rules, right? So just keep that in mind. So they come to the house, they have a one-page contract, okay? And the contract says that they can resell the property. So a double escrow is what we call it sometimes,
Okay.
right? Yeah, so they can resell the property to somebody before they even close escrow, reassign it.
Mhm.
And the iBuyer gave themselves essentially it was 5 months to reassign it to somebody else. And they had a $1,000 deposit in escrow, which is like nothing. Deposits are 1 to 3%.
Yeah.
And they were buying the house from the seller for about 500,000, and they were trying to find somebody to switch it to for about 650,000.
Mhm.
And the time came and they weren't able to find somebody. I don't know what was going on, but they weren't able to find a second investor to do the double escrow,
Mhm.
and they won't let the seller out of the contract. It's like this whole screwy thing with an escrow opened, and then there's a litigation pending on the title because the iBuyer wants to force the sale of the property. So it's like, oh my gosh, now you know what you thought was going to be really interesting and fast and
Mhm.
painless
Mhm.
is now turned into a you know a made for TV movie. It's like, be careful who you are working with, who you're signing contracts with.
Mhm.
Do some research, do some Googling, ask a friend, consult with an attorney, a tax person. I don't know, have somebody else's eyeballs on it before you sign something that sounds like, it might solve your problem because there might be a better solution out there and or somebody might be trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah, and that's the case oftentimes with an iBuyer. They're looking to buy something for a lot less than market value. But in that case, it was like one of those where they control the property to sell it at a profit. What's the purpose of that other than just being greedy?
Oh yeah, greedy, greedy, greedy.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, so that's our topic for this week. And it's, not all iBuyers are bad buyers. I'm sure there's been plenty of
Mhm.
useful circumstances where it's worked out for somebody. But overall, just always be mindful and look for somebody else's opinion who you know and trust, like an attorney, a tax person, and you know. Anyway, so that being said, now we are in the last week of January.
We are already.
It was both the longest and the shortest January ever, you know?
Feels like it.
So what happened? What's happening with interest rates in the last couple of days?
Well, good news is rates
Hmm.
are getting better. Now, I've said that
Hmm.
before, then a week later, it takes it all back and then some. I'm really
Right.
hoping this has some sticking power, and I think it does. I think
Hmm.
the next few days, I think we get to the next couple of weeks as we break through some barriers on the 10-year Treasury security, see where that goes.
Hmm.
I think this might have some legs on it. So I think we're going to be in better rate territory. Now, be mindful whenever I say that, like you were talking about the iBuyers, what these ads and things. Let's keep in mind that rates do not like drop. They never drop. You get these ads come out, oh, rates just plummeted. They don't do that. Yes, they are on the downside, but it's incrementally down. Over time, yes. Over the next
Hmm.
8, 10 days, yes, some improvement, but not a huge improvement. But
Hmm.
you have to look at the trending on that. Okay. So I do think right now, where the market is, Megan, we're starting to see a little bit of a breakout here on the downside. It will have, I think, some legs for a little while. But
Hmm.
by the way, when that happens, that does not mean it's a long-term trend. It's typically a short-term event until something else
Hmm.
happens to drive it some other direction. So when
Hmm.
rates start dropping, that doesn't mean we're going from, let's say, 6.75% to 5%. We might go from, again, for example, 6.75% to maybe 6.25%. That's okay. That's okay. And then over time, who knows? I wish I had a crystal ball on this. Nobody knows. But over the next year, we might hit 5.75%. So the point of it is, we're not going to go, for example, from 6.75% to 5% like overnight. It's just not going to happen. So those ads and the people in the market to this stuff, it's just, it's just not accurate. But the good
Hmm.
news is rates are right now are trending down, and that's a good sign for the market. It's very healthy for the market. And that's going to create a lot more opportunities for buyers that have been kind of sitting on the sidelines a little bit, thinking that,
Hmm.
they can buy a house. Well, now's the time. Now is the time
Hmm. Hmm.
without it.
Yeah, inventory is definitely, we talked last week how things have slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I am seeing that in the normal house market that things are slowing down a little bit. But people are out there looking. But yeah, I don't know. The real estate market is so weird nowadays because it's just so like micro events. There's these little events, and it sends the stock market one way and interest rates one way, and it's just several events happening just all in the same
Can't
short
predict
period
those
of time.
things. It's not predictable. For example, tomorrow we might wake up and maybe one of the Fed governors makes some comment about the market, they don't like it, and then the rates go back up just for no good
Right.
reason. Just someone made a comment, the markets don't like it, and it reacts to it. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I tell buyers all the time, when you reach a point where you like that rate, look, I think the way it goes is like this. Pigs make money, but hogs get slaughtered. Okay, let's
Yeah.
do a hog here. Let's just make the money and go. You got to get the rate you like, take it. Now,
Yeah.
there might be an opportunity a year from now to maybe go to a lower rate, and that's okay too. But let's take advantage of this short-term cycle and lock in the best rates you've seen probably in 6 months or close to it.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
We're heading that direction, so let's take advantage of that. That's
Yeah,
my.
it'd be nice. Be nice to be a little closer to six, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think we're heading there. Not there yet, but we're knocking on the door.
That's good. I don't want to be greedy, but that
Yeah.
would be
No,
nice.
listen, I like lower rate. I like 3% personally. I think that's a great rate, but
Oh my gosh, Rick, that was exhausting. That was too much cortisol for that one.
so
No, thank you.
we won't see those.
Anyway, all right. Well, that sounds good. And thanks for the update. Next week we'll have a new topic. And if you have any questions about iBuyers or you run into a situation, send us a message and we'll be happy to talk to you about it.
All good stuff. Thanks, Megan. Appreciate you.
Thank you. See you next week.
Yeah.